Welcome to the Focus Professional Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Lenton, and this is episode 22. Welcome to the Focus Professional Podcast. Today's guest is an ambassador for Lumix, Hobolite and Calibrite. He's won Welsh Portrait Photographer of the Year 3 times, amongst other things. He can be found lurking on street corners, pointing a camera at people. This is Ross Grieve. Hey, Ross.
That's got to be one of the most diverse introductions I've ever had. Thanks, Joe.
Well, I'd like to cover a little bit of everything. Can't be here all day, though, obviously,
Exactly.
Listing
That's
all
true.
of your achievements.
Oh, brilliant, mate. Yeah,
Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me.
So, you're covering a lot of bases with your photography. You're covering a lot of bases as an ambassador. So how did it all start? Why did you all get into it all?
Why did it go? Well, if we peel it all back, when I was at school in New Zealand, and I was fascinated with the whole chemical process on how that image appeared on paper. And I just had this thirst to learn how to do that. I just wanted to know, how does that image appear? So sort of a bit of reverse engineering. So I sort of was learning how to print before I was really learning how to take photos, if that makes sense. And then I was just completely fascinated and grew from that. And then my first gig as a photographer was working for a bungee jumping company in Queenstown.
Oh,
So that was good, up to 300 bungee jumpers a day, and shot on film. So you had to be very disciplined, which was all good training for the wedding photography side of my business, which is where it started. The wedding photography and the commercial side is started in Queenstown, and then it sort of grew from there into the portrait side. Just photographing people, really. That's my thing. I love photographing people, but then I also have a thing for food photography as well, which, I do sort of quietly, which seems a weird thing to do for a business. But I don't know. I just love image creating and the thought process behind it. And I'm also my own worst enemy about image creating as well, because people who've listened to me before, they'll know I have this love-hate relationship with my photography.
right. Okay. Fair enough. Well, a lot that we could dig into there. I mean, presumably this was in the days of colour print. This is not, you're not going quite as far back as just black and white now, are you?
Well, at school I was printing just black and white. I never actually myself printed colour, because it's obviously a completely different process, and it's not the easiest thing in the world. So all my colour printing was done at a lab where I'd communicate with them, and hence I became a bit of a colour geek, because I wanted to get things right. So hence my association with Calibrite. I know I had this obsession with being able to pick up colour, notice flaws in colour, and then wanting to get that right. And the whole printing process, because, we talk about prints. Print is king. It always will be. When we're all pushing up daisies, the print is still going to be there hanging on the wall.
You get your file formats that become obsolete and things that you can't get read anymore. And if you do a good archival print, that'll outlast you.
Absolutely. So you cannot beat, holding. And this thing, if you show someone one of your photos and you show it to them on screen or on a phone, they're like, oh yeah, that's right. But you give it to them to hold in their hand, and they're just like, wow, look at that. And they'll hold it up, and they'll hold it up even closer, because really that's how you view a photo, isn't it? Rather than standing back and enjoying it. But I also say to clients, if they, when they purchase photos, say, you'll walk past it on your wall every day. And if you've got a photo on your phone, you may not look at it every day. You may have to search for it, but you don't have to search for it on the wall. It's there. You know where it is. You walk past it, you can stop and stare and enjoy it. So I think,
The funny thing as well with prints is they can look slightly different times of day, different because of the light, how the lighting affects them, because they're reflecting light back. Whereas on a screen, it's just, it's what the screen gives you, because it's emitting that light, isn't it? So
it is. the screen is pushed at you, isn't it?
Yes.
The light is pushed at you. Yeah. So it's emitting that light. So yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it too. So again, that's going to be enjoyed in different ways. The portability of, there's that fun and excitement. Oh, look at this photo I took and you showed to friends, but they don't see the impact that they do. When you're looking at a print and you can just go, wow, that's amazing. You go to, the National Portrait Gallery, for example, and you look at the paintings and the textures and everything, the depth and the layers and everything like that. It's the same with photography. You'll look at the depth and the layers and the technique and the exposure and the composition and all that sort of thing. And you really appreciate it when you see it in front of you rather than just looking at a digital screen, which everything is pushed in front of us now that way.
Yeah, it's bizarre because it's a two-dimensional medium, obviously, but at the same time, a good print, it feels more 3D than just looking at a screen. It's hard to explain it, but if you put them side by side, and we're talking about a good print here, we're not just talking something you've run off some cheap as chips thing at the local supermarket or something, But even there, it's worth doing.
It is worth doing, but also you go down. I love photography books, and I've got a few. I've got a few of my favorites, which which I will open a page on that book and I'll leave it on on either in the office, just open like the page of the day if you like, but again, that's looking at that print. And photography books for me are incredibly inspiring, or books that have a good image, a good illustration of, I've got Gary Larson's complete collection, those books, and I absolutely love those. But I don't enjoy those as much as looking at it on screen. It's the same principle. You hold something and you cherish it more and you appreciate it more, and it's got emotional value, and as well as that, obviously that sort of value that it is to many people who get to experience it. And I think that's the important thing about prints is that not everyone gets to experience that print on the wall, where if it's on Facebook or something, it's taken at a glance.
Yeah.
So, it's a different experience altogether. Well, that was going down a complete sidetrack there, wasn't it, Joe?
Oh, well, it's all right. From one sidetrack to another, nothing wrong with that. So, I mean, saying you did all your darkroom printing and so on, do you miss those smells? Have you got a darkroom scented air freshener hanging somewhere to remind you of those days?
I was very lucky a few years ago, just before lockdown. Matt Jacobs, a good cinematographer friend of mine, amazing work. Look up at his work, Narcosis Pictures. And we had met. I'd introduced Matt to Trevor and Faye Ewbury a few months prior, and they invited us up to their home to film them because Matt had started creating this series called Portrait of an Artist. So he did one of me on street, and then he did one on the Ewburys. So we went up and spent a few days with Faye and Trevor, and it's an experience I'll never forget. Obviously, cherish that time with Faye and Trevor very, very deeply. And Matt's become immensely good friends with them as well. But we saw the whole platinum palladium process that they go through, and that, like you talk about that smell that hasn't quite got that Devon Fix smell, but it's still got that chemical smell going on there. And seeing what I would call Trevor and Faye masters of print, because they are what they produced, and seeing that whole process. Whereas if anyone's developed before, you expose under the light and then you put it into your developer and then it slowly comes through. Whereas if you watch the Ewbury film, you'll see as soon as Trevor puts it in the chemical mix, boom, it appears with a palladium process. It's just like, well, you can't, and it's a very expensive process as well. But they did, like I said, they're masters of print. So yeah, looking at other people print and learning off other people printing as well is incredible. Dodging, you dodge and burn on Photoshop and on Lightroom and stuff like that. But if you're exposing manually, you're dodging with hands and it's paper and masking that way, and it's just that whole process. And then you can smell that developer in the background, and you just know that smell wherever you are. If you've been in a darkroom, doesn't matter how long you've been out of a darkroom for, you just go, oh, Devon Fix. Devon Fix. Available. Available this Valentine's Day.
His and hers edition, yes.
It's Devon Fix. It's the scent you want.
So, given the sort of obvious interest and passion that you've got for print, so what would you say to a photographer who's never had their digital images printed that says, well, it's just too expensive?
Do you know what? I'd say to them, talk to a lab and say you've never printed before and you've got a favorite print that you love and you like to have a go. Even if it's a 6x4 print, doesn't have to be a massive print. So just get that printed, because printing labs, weirdly enough, love printing. They're in business for that, but they also love seeing the result of their customers who have a really good print. So get a print, get that, and show it to someone you love and see their reaction, because that will stay with you forever. And I think if people, they buy our images and stuff and it hangs on the wall, and they show you an image of your image hanging on their wall. And that is, to me, is a real privilege, because we're like historians, we're taking photos and they've been hung on a wall. But for someone who hasn't printed before, get one print done. It doesn't have to be huge, 6x4. You'll be quite surprised. It's, you can find some really, really good labs who will be able to help you out, and get it printed, show it to someone you love, put it in their hand. Don't just, put it behind, bulletproof glass or anything like that. Put it in their hand, let them feel it, hold it, look at it, enjoy it. And that is the true essence of sharing and enjoying a print. I really believe that.
Yeah, I mean, okay then. So if they're going to do this, if they're going to spend the money on doing it, would you say, get a few done, or would you say get one done really well? Is it important to spend time getting the right paper and all that, or is it just a case of get it in your hands so that you can get that initial impression?
I think initially it's get it in your hands, get the initial impression. And then once you get the initial impression, then start going down and talking to the lab, going, right, this is what I like. Tell me about papers, because different papers affect the look of the photograph. When things are printed nowadays, if it's inkjet, find out absorbs ink more. Glossy paper doesn't use as much ink. There's different effects, which are going to, like a burrito paper has got a sort of a silver look to it. So there's so many different papers that are going to make your image and enhance your image in different ways. So, for a fine art, beautiful landscape, you may want a nice sort of natural fine art paper. If it's a classic portrait, you may be looking at like a luster or something like that. So if you want something to pop in a commercial image, you may be looking at a gloss. It does really come down to personal preference. And it is your photo at the end of the day, and it is how you want it represented. So keep that in mind, but also listen to people's advice and take on board. I mean, like you and I, Joe, I've been almost a photographer for 30 years, but I'm still learning and I'm still listening to people and what people will tell me, and I'll go, oh, actually, that's a really good idea, because everyone does things differently.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way. There's just a different way to do things. So I think, get it there, listen, learn, and take on board what you can.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I first sort of did a test print across a few different papers of the same image, and you look at it and think, hang on a minute, that looks really rather different from one paper to another. And then just handing it to somebody else and them feeling the difference between the papers in their hands, because most people are used to the kind of the basic paper, the cheap floppy stuff, and some of these papers, some of the fine art ones are almost like cardboard, They go, this is really heavy. I've never seen anything like it,
And it adds, because we're geeking out on paper now, but you pick up a heavy print or heavy paper, and that's got your image on it, and that image is just singing to you. You're just like, oh wow, I wasn't expecting this emotional hit. And it's kind of like, oh gosh, it's just high, isn't it? You see something that you've created, and then someone's helped you take it that step further by printing it. And then you're just like, wow, I took that. And that's how it looks. and then you're showing it to your friend or family. But also a big fault, which I think people do, they'll show it to friends or family who haven't got that emotional attachment that you have, and they may criticize it unknowingly, and that can knock someone's confidence.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth sort of noting that don't take everything to heart, because people are used to looking at things on their phone, and some people may look at that image, oh yeah, that's nice. Don't go, and you're thinking, this is amazing, this is the best image I've ever taken. Don't necessarily take everything to heart. If you love that image, hang that in your home. If someone goes, oh yeah, that's nice, the next person may go, wow, that's outstanding. So mix, don't be disheartened, and, keep trying, keep learning, and keep going, because we've all had massive knocks in our careers, that's for sure.
Yeah, you've got to remember that art is very personal. Some people will love Picasso, some people will love a John Constable, and so on and so on. But it's also, who do you listen to? Because if you try, like with anything, if you try and please everybody, you're gonna get some negatives. So
yeah, that's it's like someone who loves coffee, the other person likes tea. So
exactly. So if you show it to the first person and they go, yeah, I don't really like it or something, that doesn't mean that that's the definitive judgment on your image, and that's that.
No, exactly. And then then you can show them a completely different image, and they'll go, wow, that's amazing. That's people's personal taste.
Yeah.
We talk about taste just like food, or anything. They will just have a personal preference, which is completely different to your emotional attachment. And it's like, even when we're talking about images we give to clients, and we're doing a viewing with people, a client may pick something different, and you're really pushing this picture that you've got an emotional attachment to, and they can't see that emotional attachment, because they can see mum looking pretty, but you can see a composition of an image and that's looking amazing. But that photo of mum looking pretty means more to them than that composition of the image that you're in love with. So there's also that aspect, as a working photographer,
Definitely.
that not everyone's going to love it.
No, and sometimes we create images because we want to show things off at their best. Sometimes we want to show off something beautiful. We want to show somebody looking their best. But there might be other times, and perhaps you come across this with your street photography, where you're trying to tell a story which is uncomfortable. So the image might not get 1,001 likes because people don't immediately go, oh, that's pretty.
Yeah, I've got an absolute belter of an image, and that it's happened to me actually, and I put it in for competition as well, and it just got knocked. And it was actually the end. Matt and I were filming Portrait of an Artist, the street version, and it was one of the last ones of the day, and you'll actually see that image in there. And what happened was, we were walking towards the station Northern Line, and there was a homeless couple just outside the station. So we would always go up to homeless people and say, look, how's it going? How's your day going? And we got the story behind them, and they basically come out of rehab. They've been through the whole rehab. So they've been in accommodation for rehab, and now they've finished their rehab. Now they're chucked back down on the street. And then, so they're just in this circle going round. So they're sitting arm in arm behind each other with a blanket. And I literally just crouched down to take their photo, and a couple walked behind them, and then behind them, they were arm in arm. And then I took the photo, and my battery had run out for the day. I only carry one battery for this camera. And it ran out, and I couldn't show them the photo, which was ironic. I couldn't look at it till I got home.
Right.
But at the front of that photo so they've got a light coloured blanket. So her knee is under the blanket, so it's like a big triangle at the middle. So every time I looked at that photo, I just looked at the couple walking behind, and the connection of the story between the couple who were going home and the couple who were arm in arm sitting there, who couldn't go home because he didn't have a home. And that's all I saw, and I thought, this is an amazing image, it's an amazing story. But when it entered in a competition, it got knocked out because there was this big white center of impact, if you like, that people were looking at and going, that's where my eye's going. And it wasn't until I became a competition judge that I understood that. And I was just like, oh, I get it now. Yeah, I completely get it. Just because you're emotionally attached to that image doesn't mean it's good for someone else. It may be a good editorial image and for a home charity or something like that, but it's not going to cut the mustard in other aspects. So, yeah, that's my street photography is a great training ground for all sorts as well. I mean,
it scares a lot of people, though, doesn't it? You know, when you start talking about street photography, I don't know whether it's mainly here, whether it's mainly a British thing. It's like you kind of people start to tense up and they look a bit awkward about it.
I think that's a lot down to social media as well, because there's some people who have gone around and they run around and they stick a camera in people's faces, and I've never had that approach. Plus, I've got an accent, which does help. So being from New Zealand, I can sort of approach people and I just talk calmly and say, look, you're really interesting. What's your story? Can I take your photograph? And I used to actually just stand back and take photos. And a friend of mine who is a National Geographic photographer, we were out in Japan and he was going up and going, you need to find their story. And you need to discover that story because it'll make your picture stronger if you understand their story. And it's true. It's so true. And it also shows respect, I think, as well. And if someone says no, respect that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you will learn over time how to judge a crowd as well. So you're not going to go and sit in a park with a long lens photographing children. Let's be honest.
Probably best not to. No.
You're going to go out and photograph a scene, a story. Some people will find it flattering if you go up to someone and go, hey, look, can I take your photo? And some people will be a flat no, like I said, go back. But like I said, over the years, I've learned to stand back and just recognize I can take that. And then I'm going to approach that person and say, look, I've taken your photo. Here it is. Do you mind? And some people are, no, cool. I said, look, I'll send you a copy as well. What's your email address? Here's mine. And, you have a conversation. And do you know what? Some people have said to me, how do you do that? And I said, well, I'll go up to someone and say hello. What are you going to say if someone says hello? You're not going to tell them where to go. Normally people say, oh, I'm in a rush, or they'll say hello back. And it's because of social media and phones and stuff, we've kind of lost the art of communication a bit. So actually speaking to someone, makes life a lot easier. So yeah, just go up to someone and say hello, and tell them what you're doing. I have had it one instance where it blew up in my face.
Ooh.
And so, and I've talked about this. I talked about this at the photography show and at Society's convention. So I was in a well-known market, and I went to their management office because being in a market is private property. So you really, if you're going to shoot commercially, you really need to ask permission. I understand tourists and going there, they're going to take photos for personal use. Fine. So being the person I am, I went to the office of the market and said, look, I'm here. I'd like to take some photos. Is that okay? And they said, yeah, absolutely. I told them the background and everything. And I said, look, go and speak to our man in the market. He will point in the right direction. He'll take you around all the store holders and show you where's good. So brilliant. So I went over and stood by the market's stall, which they have, their management sort of area. And his assistant was there because he was talking to two people. So I was chatting away to her saying, oh yeah, that's amazing. The light's coming through amazing today. I love this place and it smells amazing. The food going on, everything, and the hustle and bustle. It's fantastic. Anyway, the light was coming back behind him. He's talking to these two people. These two people had their back to me and there was a little gap and I could see this opportunity in the light. And honestly, you know what it's like. You just see an image and you just want to take it. So I thought, I'll just squeeze off a couple of little shots. So I sort of put it low, and I use a small camera for my street photography. And I just took a couple of photos, and he turned to me and he just went, what the hell are you doing? And honestly, I had to change my pants. And, and I was just like, oh, now I can either run or I can stand my ground and explain what's going on. So I thought the later, and I thought, right, I'm going to stand around and explain what's going on, because in me, I thought, this guy's been burned recently by someone who's annoyed him. So, and he, what are you doing? What are you doing? So he had stopped his conversation with these people and sort of focused on me, delete those photos. And I went, oh, look, I'll show them to you. They're really nice. And they were banging as well. Honestly, straight in the camera. It was just fantastic. And so he made me delete them. And I did delete them in front of him. And yes, and it did go through my head, I can use recovery software later. And I thought, no, Ross, don't go down there.
No, there's the ethics of it, isn't there?
It is. Yeah. And then I stood around and I was talking to him for about 40 minutes. He finished his conversation with his couple and they went on their way. I was talking to him about 40 minutes and he had been burned. He had a photographer come in, run around, upset all the stall holders, and obviously that just put his back up. So when I'd taken that, he wasn't in a good place with that experience. And I sort of told him what I was doing, and he really got on board. And he said, look, I'll tell you what, let's keep in touch. And he said, next time you're up here, come and see me. And I will take you around all the stalls personally, and I'll make sure you're introduced to everyone, and we'll make sure you get the best images possible. And that was because I was honest and upfront. And doing street photography, if you're seedy, if you're, annoying people, you're going to get a lot of confrontation, as I annoyed him there. And I had read that situation wrong. And I learned from that massively, and it's never happened again. So and a lot of my images, you also know, when people are in them, I will drag the shutter. So dragging the shutter, slow shutter speed.
Yeah.
So I get anonymity in there so people are not identifiable. And then I move on and get what I like. So that sort of evolved into my style because of those experiences. I don't necessarily want to freeze someone. If someone is frozen or identifiable in my photos, I've spoken to them. And I even go down the route that I will get a model release sometimes, because there is one photo I've taken. I didn't get a model release. Which is a Muslim guy. Look, I think he was coming back from prayer, because I looked at the details and it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He's got a can of Red Bull and a fag in his hand, walking back in front of a bit of graffiti on the wall. That graffiti's gone now. Down there, Brick Lane, took the photo, looked down, went, wow. Well, I didn't actually go, wow, I said something else. But, and then I looked up and he'd gone like a ghost. And I spent 6 years looking for him. Social media, looked for him, went up, looked for him, knocking on doors. No. Can't find him. So, and I have had someone come to me and want to use it commercially. And I said, I can't, I'm sorry, because I don't think it's ethically right. Some people think I'm crazy, but I don't know. It just doesn't rub with me, but.
But it seems then that, by being ethical with it like that you've got some of those opportunities that otherwise other people wouldn't have got. It's like that chap in the market, if you'd have legged it, if he'd have ever seen you with a camera there again, it wouldn't have been pretty, would it?
It wouldn't have been pretty at all. And, that's the downside of having an accent as well, because he would have remembered. You're the guy that talks funny. So... Yeah, exactly. It's, I think if you're open and honest to people, and they'll appreciate that. And like you say, opportunities will open for you, and if you speak to someone and just literally go, right, this is what we're about, they'll appreciate that. They will appreciate that you've taken the time to stand there and not leg it, because, it's their time as well. And you're giving up your time to explain what you're about. And I think that's really valuable to people as well. And, you've got stories to tell, they've got stories to tell. So it can make things really, really interesting for what you're going to do. So,
yeah, is that something then that you started with quite early on in your photography? Or did you kind of want to get your skills to a certain level before you tried going out into the wilds?
Well, it was, because I live in Pembrokeshire and I was down here thinking, and I was going through, not very inspired. So I was still shooting weddings, and I just opened a studio, built a studio, and I thought I need some inspiration, because Pembrokeshire didn't really have a lot of inspiration. So I started going to London. I thought, right, I'm going to go up and I'm going to go around the art galleries, get some inspiration, really focus. So I was going to go National Portrait Gallery, and then maybe around Soho, Covent Garden, and find some little independents, look at those, go to the Tate Modern, just get those, creative mindset going. And I got up there and I thought, oh, actually, this is really interesting. People watching. I was literally sitting in a cafe, and I love people watching. And a friend said to me, the photograph is always there. You just have to see it. And I was just seeing all these opportunities, and there's always light bulbs going on in my head. I'm just like, wow, this is ridiculous. And I didn't have a small enough camera with me. And this is another thing. I don't go shooting with a large camera because I feel quite intimidated if I'm out there with it. I feel targeted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see about people getting their phones nicked on moped gangs and that now.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually got a strap that goes around my wrist, which is clips. It's a little, it's a little think tank thing, Black Rapid strap actually. And it screws into the bottom of the camera, so it'll be incredibly hard. And then it's also tethered to the strap of the camera as well, so it's incredibly secure.
Mm-hmm.
And I still shoot on a Lumix GX9 for my street photography. I'm going to be trolling an S9 soon because that's full frame. But all my street photography is just, it's very unassuming. And because that is a small camera, it also gets you away with. If you go to photograph someone in that situation with a large camera, it's very intimidating.
You look like the paparazzi as well, don't you?
Absolutely, and they don't trust you.
No,
and they don't trust you. Whereas if you've got a smaller camera and you explain, because you've got a smaller camera, that's it's immediately an icebreaker. You talk about, oh look, I use a small camera because I get the best results. It's portable, and I look like a tourist, and I sound like one. So you get away with that. Whereas you go in with a massive camera with a flash on top or anything like that, it's going to be very intimidating. And I don't use flash in my street photography either. It's all natural light. So yeah, think about that approach as well. But it does seem a science, but you have to discover that sort of recipe that's going to work for you.
Yeah.
Because essentially the way I photograph may not work for someone else, or vice versa. The way someone else photographs might not work for me. I'm not going to go, like I said, I have gone out on street photography with a larger camera, a full frame camera, and I didn't like it. That was like last year.
Yeah.
I just went out, I'm just going to try it and see what it's like. And I felt really nervous. So I came back after about 20 minutes.
Well, I won't be doing it that way again. Yeah.
No.
I mean, it's part of it, I think, really into, if you want to excel as a photographer, is getting it to suit you. You've got to find something that you're passionate about. You don't just do street or landscapes because so-and-so does. You don't just use that camera because so-and-so does. It's what works for you. Where do you feel inspired? Where do you feel comfortable? And for some people, that might well be in the city, and for others, it might well be they want to get as far away from people as they possibly can. Yeah.
I think the thing about street photography for me, because I live in Pembrokeshire, when I go to a city, I get really excited, and I love going to cities, but also like leaving them as well. So I think if you live in a city, you take it for granted. And I've lived in some beautiful places. I lived in Queenstown in New Zealand for 2 years. And the view was a lake with a remarkable mountain range behind. And that's an incredible view. And after 6 months, my friends will come up and stay, and they'll go, oh, that's incredible. And oh, yeah. And you do. You just take your surroundings for granted. So you'd be really surprised what is near you. And, I implore people to go out with the camera, even if it's just your iPhone or something, and take some photos of what's near you, textures, scenes, daylights, because the beauty about street photography, every single day that is changing, because the light is changing, the situation is changing, the people change. There's apart from, well, I wouldn't even say buses are on time, but there's no sort of routine going there that's exactly on time. So if you can get out and do that, then that's a good place to start. Is just get out there and appreciate what's on your doorstep. Because weirdly, I have tried to photograph street photography in New Zealand, and I find it really hard. Maybe because I know what's there.
Right.
Whereas over here, there's so much history, and I just think it's amazing, the buildings, the architecture, the people, everything. And whereas in New Zealand, I'm just like, okay, I know what's going to happen.
Well, we're often inspired by something different, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Just the novelty factor.
Difference is exciting. And the fact that, we're not getting any that, in your local sort of thing. And I do believe when people go out and they nail a picture, they get excited and that they believe in themselves more as well. But I've been out for days and I've photographed nothing. I've walked 10K in a day and I've just walked and I've taken nothing. And this was in London. But those are days you just don't feel inspired, but you drink a lot of coffee, eat a lot of cake, and that's the fun side of it. But yeah, like I said, the photo is always there, and sometimes you won't see it, but it's always there. So you just got to open your eyes.
So if people are doing this as a genre amongst their photography, is it something that you can expect to be able to commercialize in any way? Can you do sort of sell fine art prints, or is this something that more you do as a minor role within your business as a professional photographer?
Well, it started as a minor role, and then people wanted me to talk about it, which I thought was really weird because it was just something I did. And I thought, and then I talk about it, and I talk honestly about it, and I do get an income from it. I've got a couple of collectors in Europe, and I've got a couple in Ireland as well. And they are excited when I put new stuff out. So I need to shoot some new stuff actually. But yeah, that's it is commercially viable. You've got to be realistic, but then that goes down the route. You need to discover a style, a signature style that sets you apart, that people are going to recognize, oh, that's a Joe Lenton or that's a Ross Grieve, because that adds value to it. If people can identify what that is, then they're going to, like a Picasso, people know it's Picasso, but just by looking at it. So that adds value to it as well. Get inspired by other people, don't copy. Use their ideas, and then, like your English teacher always used to say when you write essays, put it in your own words.
Yeah.
That sort of mindset. Yeah. Just go out and practice and practice and practice. And the beauty of digital, you can practice as much as you like. You can take as many photos as you like. Not like back in our film days where we were limited to 36 and 36 shots per roll. And if you're lucky, you'd squeeze 37 out of a 36 roll. But if, go and practice and get that mindset, and then, look at the market that you want to target. And that's really important because you can either go high end, you can go middle, you can go low. It depends what market you want to target as well. And the product that you want to provide. If you want to provide digital prints, if you want to provide prints that we've talked about already, which in my personal opinion have a massive impact, and you have control over that as well. Because if you're providing digital prints, you don't know what it's going to turn out like on someone's wall, and then someone comes and go, oh, who took that? Oh, that's a Ross Grieve. Oh God, that printing's horrendous. Whereas if you've got the control and you do it yourself, then you have eliminated that problem. So yeah, that's the sort of steps. Get out there, put your work out there, be prepared for knockbacks. That's life.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter whether you're a photographer or whatever genre you do, you've got to be able to carry on if someone says no. Otherwise, you ain't going to get anywhere, are you? I mean, how do you find then the balance for you? What suits you best, being commissioned or having a sort of free hand to go and create something and then try and sell it?
I think a free hand. Being commissioned to do like my commercial work and stuff like that, that's no problem. Street photography commission, I've never had a street photography commission, but to actually go out and shoot something specific for someone would be quite challenging. It would be quite exciting. I'm thinking about it as I'm speaking, but it would be quite exciting because I do like a challenge and actually go, right, this is our brief. We want you to go and shoot this for, say, for a corporate headquarters, for example. I would quite enjoy that challenge because I quite enjoy the research that would go into that. I would then Google Maps is your friend as well. That's another little secret for street photographers out there. Use Google Maps. Saves a walking.
Especially if you want to judge the sun, angle of the sun at certain times of day. You can pick any day of the year in any city in the world these days and check where the angle of the sunrise or sunset is. It's fantastic.
And PhotoPills is another good one for that as well, actually. That's another little good app. But mainly Google Earth, like you say, is fantastic for that. But yeah, I would quite enjoy that research actually. Now, the more I think about it, it does scare me, and normally things that scare me a bit end up exciting me, and I do really put a lot of effort into things like that, and I do tend to over deliver, which I don't think there's anything wrong with.
No.
Whereas you've got
a lot better than the opposite. You don't want to under-deliver. If someone's expecting something great and you don't provide it, oh dear.
But if you go, the beauty of that is that client's going to have something unique. Whereas, obviously the others, people are picking from a pool of pictures or limited edition pictures. So that is the beauty of it. And that adds value to that for that person as well. So then that is a true piece of art for them that's been created and commissioned for them. So yeah, that's I've sort of completely talked myself into that.
Well, there you heard it here, folks. So open for a commission for the street photography. Well, with the commercial photography, quite often a brief can be quite strict. They can have a shot list of things that they want. How do you find working under those situations? Do you always feel you need to actually provide something else for your own sanity so that you've done something creative? Or are you quite happy just following the instructions all the way through and giving them what they ask for?
I'm 100%. I need my sanity. So I will do the safe shots, do their brief, because that's what the client wants. But we talked about over-delivering, but then I also use my own creativity and I'll produce some work that I think would benefit them as well. It's not just, what I like, but I think, is that going to benefit the client? Is this going to add value to what I'm giving them already? Yes, absolutely. That's what I'm going to do. So that's what I tend to look at, going down that route. But yeah, it's a hard one because I think just shooting to a brief can get very robotic. And mundane, but then we're going back to the creative process of being excited. If I know I've got that in the bag and then that client comes back and goes, oh, that's amazing. Wow, I really like what you did there. Then that's going to possibly generate more work for you. And that's the whole cycle we want. We want customers coming back. And if you're going to put that effort in, they're going to appreciate that. So yeah, absolutely. No, I can't do the whole robot thing.
No, I've discovered that about myself and discovered it the hard way, and it doesn't go well. It doesn't end well, that kind of thing. So you clearly got like various different strands to your business. How do you find with the marketing? Are you feeling like you're spreading yourself quite thin, keeping all these plates spinning? Is it something you can do quite naturally? Because often you hear, if you go to your sort of business gurus, it's niche down, find your niche. Or would you say that you've found a particular niche within these ones? Because someone on the outset might look at your website and say, oh, he does quite a lot of different things.
I think 20 years ago, you'd say, yes, find your niche and concentrate on that. I think now you need to be very competitive in the market. I think you need to be prepared to offer more. If you can offer that skill set, then I think that's fantastic. It's not necessarily, oh God, he's doing a bit of this and a bit of that. He can do those things. So I think if you can do those things, you should tell people about it. Maybe have a couple of different brands. So one is not getting diluted. So I'm toying at the moment because we're going down a video line as well.
Right.
So rather than Ross Grieve Photography, it's probably going to be around Ross Grieve Photo and Film. Tells people what we do. Rather than having a Ross Grieve film site and a Ross Grieve photography site. So people can go to one place and look at what we do. So there is that sense. Social marketing wise, I actually do social marketing for some other companies. So I've got a social marketing aspect to my business as well.
Okay.
And I'm actually better at doing it for clients than I am for myself.
That's often the way, isn't it? It's the old saying about cobbler's children, It's great at doing it for other people. When it comes for yourself.
Yeah. So that is me 100%. I quite happily, my mindset just goes elsewhere. And then I just want to take photos. And then if I'm thinking of social media for myself, I'm thinking, oh, crikey. But then if I'm doing it for someone else, I get really creative. because, I have to create content for them. And it's the most bizarre thing, because I'll put some stuff out there, which is great, and I'll get a good reaction. And yeah, it's bizarre. Like I put some content out for a client yesterday, and I think after a couple of hours, it already had 1,000 views. The engagement was through the roof. And just one of those things. I think one of the ones I did for them last year, I think on TikTok, it's 600,000 views. On Facebook, it's over 1 million. So, and if I could get one of those on my own site, that'd be great.
Do you think it's anything to do with the sort of the pressure or the focus of it, because you're fulfilling a brief for someone within a time frame, whereas you feel for yourself it's a little bit more open, perhaps? Is it that narrowing of focus that helps you get that done?
I think with myself, we go back to the emotional attachment.
Right.
And I look at my own images and the whole love-hate thing. And I'll go, that's not good enough to put online. No, that one's not good. Or maybe that one. And I'm procrastinating. And whereas a client will go, yeah, that's great. They're going to love that because I know the recipe. Whereas it does sound weird. I don't think I've discovered my own recipe yet for my social media. And it's ridiculous, because I'm just being pedantic and being too critical on myself. And it's the old imposter syndrome thing as well, creeps in a little bit, I think. But I'm being far too critical on myself, and I should just get on with it.
Well, what about then you've been doing the judging training with the society? Is that just made it even worse then, if that's the case? You're learning to be even more picky.
Well, yes, I haven't really thought about it that way, but maybe to an extent, because I see more in my imagery than I used to. That training is fantastic, and it's improved my photography as well. Definitely improved my photography, improved my filmmaking, improved my editing. And if you ever watch me edit, it's very brief because I don't do a lot to my images. I try and get as much as I can right in camera, and that's just the old school mentality and the way I learned. There's nothing wrong with people who want to spend days editing. That's entirely up to them. But yeah, by doing that, I think I am probably definitely slightly more critical, but I am pedantic. I need to give myself a good slap, actually.
So, aside from the competition judging training, there's not something that really finishes, because even once you are a judge, there's still ongoing input from Terry. It's great. Are there other things that you do to develop yourself as a professional, whether it's from a business or a photography angle?
I always speak to my mates in the photography business. Weirdly, actually, during this, you're quite like this. During lockdown, when all weird things were going on, I put a thing out on Facebook and saying, "Oh, right, who's got an Xbox? Here's my gamer tag. Let's get on and play some games." And James Musselwhite, Scott Johnson, and Andrew Younger popped up.
There's trouble there, I think. Yeah. Trouble a brewing.
And so that was in 2020. We still keep that going because it sounds the most bizarre thing, but mental health in this industry is a very hard thing to deal with. And I've been to some very dark places, and I think other people will put their hand up and say, yes, but when you speak to other people and you're saying, I'm really struggling with this aspect of my business, and they'll go, yeah, I am too. What, have you tried this? Oh, no, I haven't. And you say to them, well, have you tried this? And it's not like telling someone what to do. It's just being another voice and also a set of ears, which is incredibly valuable. But yeah, we've kept this going, and, we'll go on and play Fortnite. Like, we're, in our 40s and I'm in my 50s and it's great fun. It's a fact you can like switch off for an hour. And I think with the way social media in the world is at the moment, it's 24/7. If you can switch off for an hour and just talk absolute, rubbish and absolute nonsense, then I think that's very valuable. But at the same time, you might jump in and catch up with that person the next day and go, right, okay, I was thinking about this and I'm struggling with this and it's really getting me down. What can I do about it? Well, mate, go and take the dog for a walk. Oh yeah, it's a good idea. And it's simple things that you need to hear And that's what I love about this industry, is that people are very, very generous with their knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think whether you're stuck in a process that you're trying to improve your photography on, and as a fellow, I'm always trying to improve, and as a photographer and image maker in general, I'm always trying to improve my technique, keep up with technology and stuff like that. Because I was very, very late going from film to digital.
Okay.
And I learned, I held back. I didn't believe in it to start with, and I held back. And then when new technology comes out now, I embrace myself in it. Like I was told years ago about what was potentially coming with AI.
Mm-hmm.
And so as soon as it came available, I've thrown myself into it. Not necessarily image creation, but, helping me get ideas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's tools out there that can help you. We talk about photographing people. That's great.
Yeah.
But you talk to people and they have the best ideas that you can possibly ever have. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as an individual, and often photographers are individuals in business. It might be a couple of you or something like that, but there is that risk that you miss that bigger perspective. If you just stay in isolation all the time, nobody is that brilliant that they can come up with all the ideas for marketing, for image production and post-production and so on and so forth. All of us need help at some point. It doesn't matter how many awards you've won or titles you've got or whatever. None of us has got all the answers. So connecting with others is so valuable.
It is. And it's good fun, actually. It's good fun. So you catch up with people, like-minded people, and it's just so refreshing. You get that little hit we talked about, and you just geek out. It's great.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't try and bore your friends and family to death with F numbers and this, that, all this business. No. Find another photographer and geek out for a couple of hours.
Absolutely.
It's great fun. Yeah. So I mean, for you overall, over the years as you've developed it, I'm not trying to make you sound old here, by the way, by saying over the years and years and years. No, over the time that you've developed as a photographer, have you found any particular sort of weaknesses that you've had to overcome to get to where you are now?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I've never ever been asked that. So any weaknesses I've had to overcome? Yeah, well, I'd say, like I said, I've been to some dark places. That can be challenging.
Yeah.
And I think lockdown brought that along, because I think most photography businesses were really, really hit by that. So that made you have to reset and have a different mindset. I used to be incredibly stubborn and would think, no, I'm doing it this way. This must be the way to do it. And then I learned, well, actually, take the blinkers off, Ross, and see what's around you, and you actually make your job easier. So I used to go and see my mate Dave Wall for Photoshop training, and that was incredibly beneficial. So yeah, that was one of the main things I used to struggle with, was say retouching and stuff like that. So I've learned a lot from him, and he's follically challenged like me as well. So it was great. But yeah, gosh, weaknesses. Wow. I think probably a lot of weaknesses, conversion to one. I think nothing I can sort of pinpoint. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying when I have a weakness, I'll refine it. So, so product photography, that was quite a challenge, learning how to do things and, focus stacking and things like that. That was really challenging. Learning that process.
Very technical product photography, yeah.
Yeah, very technical stuff. But I kind of geek out on the journey of that. Talking to people and taking their photographs, I love that aspect. I can do that blindfolded. But there's also a weakness that you can be complacent. I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah, a weakness would be complacency. I used to become complacent, and then I'd go, oh, yeah, that's great. And then everything goes the way you don't want it to, and like, oh, crikey. So I've certainly learned not to become complacent. That's helped improve my imagery. Listening to people has improved my imagery. And that whole not being stubborn like when I went from film to digital as well, embracing technology, embracing techniques out there as well. That's also strengthened what I do, being aware of what's around me, definitely.
Well, how about if we flip it around the other way and say, have you found that there have been particular strengths that you've got that you've been able to lean into more and more as time's gone by to allow yourself to be more successful?
I think my public speaking has actually helped that immensely because it's made me appreciate my work more. And it's because I would look at work, like I said to you previously, and I would really discount it. And then by speaking, you actually find people who enjoy your work. I deliberately didn't say love your work because I think that's really egotistical. So, and who enjoy your work. And then that gives you confidence. And like I said, when I got asked, the first time I got asked to speak was to go out to Morocco for PTO. And that used to go when George Storber, bless him, used to run that. And the lab sort of suggested I'd be great. And I was like, what do I talk about? Well, just what you do. And I just thought it was the most bizarre thing ever. But people like to hear your story. People are interested. The stories behind the imagery. People want to know, and you do get that, what camera do you use? What f-stop, what shutter speed, so all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I'll tell people that's no problem if that's what you want to know. But if you and I went and photographed the same subject, it would be a completely different result.
Yeah.
So, and that is the beauty of photography. And when people enjoy your work, and it's not just because of public speaking that people enjoy your work, but you're made more aware of it, that people enjoy your work. And I think also because you've got that interaction, that helps. Whereas Instagram, you get a like. Whereas by speaking to, or even mentoring someone or doing a workshop, even with that, I think that's really good as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sometimes I've just found simple things when people have done them for the first time and seen the results, whether it's the first time they've done a bit of Rembrandt lighting or the first time they've done a 30-second long exposure of the sea or something like that, sort of thing that you've done hundreds of times yourself, if not thousands. You kind of enjoy it again, sort of because you're seeing somebody else really tap into that process and see the possibilities, and it just reminds you of that joy of when you discovered it for the first time. So I find working with others, teaching others, can be really rewarding.
It is, and it's not a one-way thing either. When you're teaching someone, you always get something back from them. And they may not even realize it, but that person may just do something slightly different. And that's really good how you did that. And I think, and that's another thing. I'm a big thing of praise. If someone does something well, tell them and tell them that's good. It's harder for people to praise people than it is, to criticize. People are very quick to criticize people and knock them down.
Yeah.
And for some reason, they seem harder to praise. When I think that builds confidence, that builds improvement, that helps people move on and improve their imagery, improve their work ethic, everything like that. If you praise someone, honest praise, not just made up, just blowing smoke sort of thing.
No.
But yeah, honest praise, that is a massive building block and a massive foundation you can lay down for someone.
Well, just like we were saying earlier, mental health can be a problem when you're working on your own in this kind of an industry. You get a lot of people that you might show something to on social media, and whether they know you or not, they feel entitled to express an opinion. And often people obviously say things they wouldn't say in person. They can be quite cruel. So it's a good positive step to be able to take to cut through that and say, I've seen something good in you and it's this. And that can make such a difference to somebody who might be on a downward spiral.
Yeah. And you don't know their situation either. No. So they could have had an immense amount of trauma in their life recently or in the past or whatever. They could have just got married and they're on a high. So I don't know, you could just trigger something. I think people need to just really be empathetic and just go, that's cool. I really like what you did. And if you do want to criticize an image, and I see it so much, and I'm sure you do too, that people, that's why did you take that photo? They're learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're learning. Just be constructive and go, oh, that's really nice. And if the person's asked for a critique, great, offer it. If they haven't, just if you don't like it, don't bother commenting. I don't really
move on. Move on.
Move on. There's why spend your energy? Why am I spending my energy here talking about people who waste other people's energy?
Exactly. And it has an effect on you as an individual as well. It has an effect on the other person when you give them that bit of praise, you give them that bit of encouragement, but it also does you good as well, because all too often we can get caught in that sort of negativity of always focusing on things that are wrong with things. But if you can retrain your brain to start thinking more positively, it actually has an impact on your own well-being, your own mental health, as well as the person you're speaking with.
I know, and it's really easy to do, believe it or not.
Yeah. The best things in life are free, as they say. Yes. So if there were anything you could change about your work at all, or anything you could do more of or less of in order to make your job more enjoyable, what would that be?
Oh, gosh. Right. My biggest problem is probably not releasing my retouching.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if someone took that on and did it for me to the standard I would want, that would be massive for me. For some weird reason, I don't particularly enjoy retouching, and for some reason, I don't outsource it.
Mm-hmm.
I have once or twice on an occasion where I've reached minutes, but I should just really outsource all of it.
Right.
And as we're talking about technology coming on now, that's a lot easier to do. Because I think in the past, like years ago, I got my fingers burnt, and that would have made my life much easier, much less stressful, I think. And also, we were talking about what we'd like to improve. I think we would all like, as photographers, we would all like to be busier. As image makers, we would like to be busier. My business took a massive hit over COVID. And I think a lot of businesses did. Thank goodness I'm still going, but I've had to make adjustments for that. At the start of COVID, I thought it'd be a really good idea to have a heart attack. And then, and that was just down to stress. And then 2021, I had surgery. Everything's fine now. I've never been healthier. And I'm just lucky to have the people around me at the time they did and still have. So, there's adjustments you have to make for improvements. Sometimes you just have to recognize, actually, that's sapping my energy too much. And we've talked a lot about this, energy sapping and stuff. And it is what is going to make your life more enjoyable. Time is so valuable these days as well, with family and work. Getting that balance is incredibly hard. So even if I just shifted that onto someone, I think that would be really beneficial. It's something I've certainly been looking into recently. But going to street stuff, I will always edit that myself, because that when I'm selling artwork like that, that is incredibly personal. I think the person wants to know that I've edited it.
Yeah, I think if you're doing product photography, people are less worried who's taken the dust off the thing. Often it is just a case of polishing it up. But when it's a sort of stylistic interpretation of it at all, then your input is not something you want to outsource. But it's a bit like when you mentioned about potentially being busier. There's the right kind of busy, though, isn't there? Again, with the mental health and with the stress. I mean, at the times when I've been kind of the most busy with work, has not been the most happy necessarily.
No, I know where you're coming from with that as well. It's getting that balance. You can be busy, have a really busy day, but being busy has stress levels attached to it.
Yeah.
So, you're trying to meet those customers' expectations. You're also trying to balance your life and your lifestyle. So you being busy, just having that constant flow.
Yeah.
So my business is very much London buses. I will have a quiet period and then boom, everything will come at once. And I'd just like to be able to spread that out.
It can be exhausting, can't it? When you've suddenly got 2 or 3 jobs to do all at once, and yes, you get a bit of recovery time, but it would be nice if they would pad out a little bit more evenly sometimes.
It's just the way the world is. People want you at the same time. Oh, the sun's out. We can get stuff done. Or summer's coming up, we'll book in portrait shoots. Let's book those in the autumn or something, and then we can plan and stuff.
And businesses looking ahead to Christmas or something like that.
Yeah.
It's that everybody all of a sudden realizes, oh, we need to do that by like next week. So
yes. It's like me entering the 20x16 print competition. Oh, I need to do that by next week.
Yeah, well, it's amazing, isn't it? These things seem to take us by surprise every year, although they happen every year.
Yes, I know.
Somehow we always manage to leave it till that little bit, just to make it that little bit more stressful, put that little bit more pressure on.
But yeah, I quite happily offload some of that to someone else. And it's like, I use like Blue to manage my business as well.
Yeah.
And the automation which they've brought out is fantastic. And that's another thing I'm going down the whole route of at the moment is trying to automate my business as much as possible on the administration side, because again, that is very, very time heavy administration side on that. And if that can be more automated as much as I can, I'd be very happy.
Most people don't tend to enjoy it either. I mean, if you've gone into photography, you tend to be a creative, not someone who wants to just sit there and trawl through numbers in spreadsheets and all that kind of thing and work on databases and
yes. Yes. Spreadsheets and
yeah. Moving quickly on then.
Yes.
Yeah. So have you set any of these things as goals already? I mean, what are your goals for the coming year or the years ahead?
My goals are actually the commercial side, which is building and building.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird. At 30 years and you're saying, oh, what do you want to build? And I just want to have that consistency. So obviously I think there's been a lot of changes in the last few years. So there's been adjustments. So I think I'd just like to get back to that consistency, or normality, if you like. And that's just been through trial and error, doing different things. Getting it right there. And we're well on the way there, which is really encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some fantastic clients as well, which I'm very, very lucky to have. Some have been with me for over 20 years. And you just get that really good working relationship together, and they just come back. Where they're going to come back. You'll contact them. And I think, the biggest thing actually is communication.
Yeah.
Talking to people. Actually, don't rely on people to contact you. Get out there and contact them, because then you're going to be annoyed if they go with someone else because you haven't been bothered to pick up the phone or email them and say, hey, right, let's sort out this year's plan and strategy. What do you want to do? What do you want to go down? Do you want to book anything in now in the next few months? Let's look at this. So just, kickstart the ball rolling, because you can't really moan if you haven't done anything. It's the phone's not going to ring. I remember a wedding client, and this is a wedding client I had 20 years ago, and she emailed me, and in the email she put her phone number down. So phone number, okay, that means you want me to ring you. She told me that I was the only person that rung her out of the 12 photographers that she had inquired to.
Wow.
So this client runs a marketing company as well. So got the wedding, photographed, really beautiful wedding, photographed that. And then she asked me, right, we've got these trips we'd like you to be involved on. Can you be in Rio next Tuesday? Let me have a look. Yes, I can.
Ooh, clear the diary. Okay. I'm coming.
I've got this other trip. Can you be in Dubai a few months down the track? Yeah. So basically it was quite lucrative, really, really good, and built this really good relationship up. And as life goes on, people go their separate ways. So she asked me to photograph her second wedding. So that, to me, having that trust from a client that has said, we really like what you do, we really like you as a human being, and we really want you to be part of this again.
Yeah.
And I think that all comes down to communication. Talking to people, showing you're human. A lot of my clients become friends, and a lot you wouldn't believe the type of people I've photographed, or the people who I have photographed. And I think I've just been really, really lucky. And there is an aspect of luck to it. We can't We can't deny that. There is, in any business, is an aspect of luck.
Oh, yeah. You can put all the processes and things in place you like, but sometimes you need the right light on the right day, meet the right person at the right time. So, yeah. Absolutely. But I wonder then, when you're thinking ahead, do you plan personal projects in, or do you just sort of find when you've got a quieter period, fancy I'll take the train into London and do some street photography?
Yeah, I am. I should be. I'm far too honest. I should be more. I'm going to plan personal, but my mindset is I don't want to sort of upset too much, because that could be potentially work, which is really the wrong mindset. I should just go, all right, I'm going to do that, like going on holiday. I'm going to book out that week. We're going to go on holiday that week. So I should really go, okay, I need to go and get some more content. Like I do need to shoot some more street stuff. Go up to London for the day, get up there early, photograph, come back and make the most of it. So I should plan more than I do more ad hoc stuff. Because I think when I plan stuff, I'm much more productive. When I do ad hoc, I can always go, oh, all right, I'll do it next week.
Yeah.
And I am a much better person when I plan stuff through. I see that in my diary. I see that in the list. I see that plan, which I need to go through.
Yeah.
So yeah, I should listen to myself more often. But I think that's a classic creative thing, isn't it? We have these weird and wonderful plans.
Yeah.
And then we get distracted.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But maybe that's where some of these tools can come in, sort of helping to automate aspects of things to give us that nudge to remind us. We set up email reminders for clients and things, but what about reminders for ourselves sometimes for these things? That maybe that could be a thing.
Well, that's true. But I'm just looking at my apps, which I've got down on the bottom of my screen, and I'm looking at, okay, so I'll get a reminder to calibrate my screen. Which I do. So why can't I just book myself into doing a job, or even just going up to Cardiff, because Cardiff's quite good for street photography as well.
Yeah, some nice architecture there.
Yeah, just shoot around there. Just go up and do the day, because it's so nice to do just something for yourself as well. I think that's the big benefit of it. Just get out, do something for yourself. Don't get ground down. So yeah, I'm gonna actually do that after this. I might just have a look at the diary and see what's about.
Ooh. Accountability. Yeah, we've got it recorded.
Very spontaneous. That's I think very spontaneous is most of my problem. Apart from work and planning and communication stuff, I think when it comes to myself, I'm very spontaneous.
So if people then want to be able to keep up with you, if they can, with you spontaneously going here, there and everywhere, if they want to keep up with your work, and that, where would you recommend them to go?
Well, there's an open gate if I saw one. No, if you want to keep up with me, have a look on my socials, Instagram, Ross A. Grieve, Facebook, Ross Grieve Photography, and my website, rossgrieve.com. You can follow me on there, and you can even have a little listen on my podcast as well, which I have running, called Talking Shot, spelled SHOT.
That's available through all your usual sort of podcast apps, presumably?
Yes, that's available through all sweating applications. So yeah, you can hear me in your ears through all good podcast platforms, and and obviously Joe's extensive collection as well.
Yeah, this season 3, where by the time this is finished, we could be up to 30.
It's like Yellowstone, isn't it?
I'll be releasing the boxed set in 6 months' time.
Waiting for that. Box set with your presets too, please.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's been really great having a chance to catch up with you, Ross. Thank you very much for being willing to come onto the podcast and have a chat.
Oh, mate, it's been an absolute blast. And, on a Friday, the sun's shining, had my coffee here, and it's just, like I say, nice to geek out for a bit as well.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And thank you, everybody, for listening. This is the Focused Professional Podcast.